Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're walking in Memphis. The topic of this Walking in Memphis, USWA from February 9th, 1991. And if you want to check out the video that I reviewed for this, there's going to be a link down in the description. Pause this, go watch that, or if you don't care about spoilers, watch this and then go watch that. With that being said, we grade everything on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is the worst, 5 is the best. Let's jump right in. First match of the show, we go right into a match. Jerry Lynn versus Dr. Tom Pritchard. Kind of interesting. I always love seeing these early Jerry Lynn appearances, especially in Global. He was a great wrestler, and way before anyone really knew his name, he was putting on some fantastic matches. Dr. Tom Pritchard's an awesome wrestler as well. The interesting thing about this is Jamie Dundee, aka JC Ice, is the referee during the match, which comes into play towards the end of the match. He kind of takes Jerry Lynn's feet off the ropes to help Dr. Tom pick up the win on it. Nice little foreshadowing of what would go on later, and it would become super obvious. I'm giving this one a 4. I thought it was a really good way to start the show. I really enjoyed their chemistry. I really liked this match. Next up, we get a video, and on these, we rate everything by the segment, basically from commercial to commercial. So some of these, it's going to be just the one match. Some of it will be multiple things. After that, we get a video from Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett winning the tag titles from the Fabulous Ones, who at that point were managed by Jim Cornette. The really fun thing about this is that video, we see Jackie Fargo gets involved, who I believe was seconding the Lawler and Jarrett team to offset Jim Cornette. Bill Dundee comes out and gets involved. Eddie Gilbert gets involved. So we get a lot of the most legendary characters in Memphis. Jeff Jarrett, Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, the fabulous Jackie Fargo, the Fabulous Ones, Eddie Gilbert. If we had Jerry Jarrett, Dutch Mantell, maybe a couple others, we'd have all of them. Austin Idol missing from that list, of course. But it's so cool to see so many of the Memphis legends linked in this one video. That takes us right to another video of some backstage interviews where during that, Lawler gets burned by Eddie Gilbert throws a fireball. So they take us into Lawler's locker room where you can see his shoulder got burnt. While he's doing his interview, Eddie Gilbert comes through, and they kind of have to keep them separated. All in all, fantastic piece of business. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Eddie Gilbert, one of my all-time favorite wrestlers in the Memphis territory. Jerry Lawler, I mean, what can you say about Jerry Lawler? He's fantastic here. That segment I'm giving a 5 to. I thought it was absolutely amazing. Coming from that, we go into a match with the flamboyant Eric Embry versus Cody Michaels. Eric Embry, another guy, kind of like Dr. Tom Pritchard, and even to an extent Jerry Lynn, who doesn't quite get the respect he deserves. To me, he was awesome. He was a great heel. He was a great babyface. I enjoyed him, especially here and his work in World Class. I thought he was absolutely awesome. This was a really fun match. Eric Embry does pick up the win here. I really enjoyed that. From that, we go right to an interview with Jerry the King Lawler. As he's being interviewed, Eddie Gilbert comes out. He attacks him. They start brawling through the studio. For that segment, I'm giving that whole thing a 4. Next up, we have an interview segment with stunning Steve Austin and his manager Jeannie, who at the time I believe was his wife or was about to be his wife. This was pretty good. I mean, it's Steve Austin, very early in his career, very braggadocious, talks about he's going to be the biggest star in wrestling, kind of really foreshadowing what he would become, because there's very hard to argue that Steve Austin, at least for a very short period of time, or for a period of time, was the biggest star in wrestling, and arguably might be the biggest star in wrestling history. You could put Hulk Hogan up there, you could put The Rock up there, you could put Steve Austin, maybe some of the older guys like Gorgeous George or Buddy Rogers, Bruno Sammartino, but to me, I think Austin's in the conversation. That leads us right into a match with Steve Austin versus Nightmare Danny Davis. This I thought was a really good match. They're going back and forth, and Jamie Dundee is the manager again, or not the manager, the referee again. He keeps getting distracted by Jeannie every time that Davis has an upper hand and looks like he's going for a pin. That eventually brings out Eddie Marlin, who basically stops the match. They don't announce a winner, so I'm guessing he just threw it out. Marlin talks about firing Jamie Dundee as a referee because of the mistakes he's making and because it's obvious he's turning heel. That brings out Jamie's dad, Bill Dundee, who ends the segment by grabbing Jamie, taking Eddie Marlin's belt off and smacking him on the butt with the belt, kind of how you would admonish a child. Obviously, Jamie Dundee's going on a heel turn here. This was all fantastic. I'm giving this whole thing a 4. I thought it was really good. From that, we come back and we go into a 6-man tag match. We have Brian Lee, Doug Gilbert, and the Dirty White Boy Tony Anthony going up against Bill Dundee, Brian Christopher, and Tony Williams. I almost called him Doug Williams, like the quarterback of the old Redskins. And the Tampa Bay Bucks as well. Tony Williams and Brian Christopher, I think they were called the New Guys or the New Breed. I forget what their actual team name was, so don't roast me in the comments, but they were a tag team at the time. This was a good 6-man match. It kind of, and I'm going to talk about this here in a moment, as it's going, it doesn't really get to the point where it's getting towards a finish. We see Eddie Marlin's in the ring as a referee because the only referee that was there was Jamie Dundee, so he was to referee all the matches. During this, Jamie Dundee comes out and basically goes to attack Marlin, which brings out Bill Dundee, which brings out the whole locker room. Jamie gets his comeuppance on Bill Dundee, where he gets a belt and he has a couple people are holding Bill Dundee as he whips him several times in his back with the belt. I remember that being an awesome feud, the Dundees going up against each other. So this was really good. This is a really good piece of work. The only one caveat I'll have is we have 2 matches in a row that don't have a real finish. Overall, I'm giving that segment a 4. I thought it was pretty good. Next up, we have a video of Chris Walker versus Dr. Tom Pritchard, which ended up breaking down, which leads us right into our main event of the show, which is Jeff Jarrett, Chris Walker, and Curtis Thompson, who are gone by the U.S. Males at the time. Actually, I'm sorry. They're doing an interview. Jarrett starts talking about Steve Austin and Jeannie and hoping that Steve Austin leaves Jeannie at home because he doesn't want Jeannie to cheat for Austin. He wants to wrestle Austin straight up to see who the better man was. That brings out Jeannie, which brings out Steve Austin. They go into a little bit of a back and forth. That leads us right into our final match of the evening, which is Curtis Thompson, Chris Walker, and Jeff Jarrett. They're going up against Keith Eric, Eli the Eliminator, and Sergeant O'Reilly. I enjoyed this. I thought it was pretty good. I feel like they should have maybe ended the show on one of the crazier segments. Maybe the Austin versus Davis match. Maybe they should have ended it with a brawl in there. To me, it felt like it let down from the rest of the show. Like there was a lot that happened, and then you get to this, and it's not much of anything. The team of Jarrett and the U.S. Males pick up the win here. I'm giving that a 3. Overall, I thought this was a rather enjoyable card. It did teeter off in the end, as I said. For that, I had to take a little bit from it. But other than that, I thought it was really good. We got to see some really great wrestlers early in their careers. Jerry Lynn, Jeff Jarrett, Steve Austin, Dr. Tom Pritchard, Brian Lee. I mean, a lot of really good wrestlers along mixed in with some of the legendary talents like Bill Dundee, Jerry Lawler, Eric Embry, who was probably at the height of his career here, Dirty White Boy, who was right in the middle of what would be a really good run for him for about 10 years or so. I really enjoyed this show. I'm going to give it all together, I'm going to give it a 4. And if you could hear that, I don't know if you hear that, but it sounds like my neighbors are running a chainsaw or something outside. So if you hear that, I do apologize. I'm going to try and edit it out if you don't hear it. I have a great microphone, so that's part of the reason why. But anyway, I digress. Overall, I'm giving the show a 4. I thought it was really good. A very interesting show. I definitely recommend, if you haven't before the review, going to the link and watching it. With that being said, let's smash that like button, comment, share, subscribe. If you made it all the way to the end, let's put stunning in the comments for Steve Austin and his early gimmick. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and we've been walking in Memphis.